Welcome back. We're up to number 13 in bully-proof your child, your student. And this is all about a relationship with your student, with your biological child. We touched on this earlier, but the most obvious question is, who do you want your child to be most influenced by? The street, a neighbor, friends in school, their peers, or you, the parent, you, the adult in their life, you, the teacher. So obviously, you want to be a direct influence in this child's life. That can only really be affected through role modeling, which we talked about in tremendous detail in building block number 9, how to teach midas to children. You can't really teach midas to children, you can role model midas to children. And we've covered that in a lot of detail. So over here, what we're going to touch on is, okay, so what's the main ingredient of a child feeling safe and comfortable to open up to a parent, to a teacher, especially in the context of bullying? You want that the child should not feel afraid on any level to share what might be going on in recess or in the corridors or getting on the bus or getting off the bus on the way home with his parents or with any of his teachers. So the key here is going to be rapport. So how do we build rapport? No mysteries over here. Number 13.1. Building rapport at home means you want the child to feel, hey, home is a safe place. I look forward to being there. I'm not graded. I don't get an exam, and I'm not an A or a B or C child. I'm my parents' child. You want the home to be light, not just in terms of light-hearted, not too serious, so that a kid can truly relax and feel comfortable, and in that relaxation, be open, be honest. You also want it to be light, not so dark, and I'll explain why. You don't want it to be too untidy or dirty, has v'shalom. Besides the halachas of derech eretz and being in a place that's naki, clean, and hygienic, that's obvious, and it's one of the 13 midas that Rav Salant stressed as part of building one's character. But that aside, in the context of bullying, we've mentioned that one of the most powerful ways to bully-proof your child, it's not the most powerful, because the most powerful is inside out, but one of the most powerful ways outside in is friends. To have friends. And if you've got a kid whose home is dirty, has v'shalom, or messy, or he's just simply ashamed or embarrassed about it, so it's less likely that he's going to bring his friends over. So you don't want that to be a cause for embarrassment. As a complete aside, you don't want a kid who's ashamed or embarrassed by his parents because of what they might say to his friends, or what they might wear that might look a bit too, whatever it is, nerdy or whatever, out of fashion, in fashion. I'm not saying that that's really where it's at, but just to be sensitive that some children are going to be paying attention to that. I'm not making it right, I'm not making it wrong, I'm just bringing out that the home where you want the children to be able to have rapport with you has to be a place that the child is comfortable to bring his own friends. We'll talk about that in a little bit more detail soon. The kid feels I can unwind, I can be my true self. Home is where we role model for our children that mistakes are not bad. Mistakes are part of life. We don't come down hard, hopefully, and in some cases may even celebrate mistakes, because as we've mentioned in other parts of the training, mistakes are to be celebrated because very often they are the platform for us improving, for us changing, doing teshuvah, changing direction, improving our performance, whether it's academically or we made a mistake in a relationship and we apologize and we get stronger through that. So mistakes very often is not where the child's not necessarily going to experience that mistakes are okay in school, because on the academic emphasis, there's almost a culture of mistakes are not okay. You're going to get a red scar across your homework if you make a mistake. In this particular dimension called Al-Pidarkai and a child-centered version, we're trying to follow as much as possible. What's Chazal's definition of responding to a mistake. Am I supposed to come down hard, fire and brimstone, Gehenna, or am I supposed to treat the Aveira as it is? In the Lashon Avar, it happened. It's history. Move on. Continue. In the Lashon of Rambam, what should be my response to my mistakes, to my Aveiras, to my Chatoim? So Rambam tells us that I'm supposed to be Masya, should remove Machshavasai from his thoughts. He should stop thinking about the mistake. And this fits so perfectly in what we're talking about, because I only live inside my thoughts. So if I'm thinking about the mistake and it's outside of the context of Teshuvah, then I'm just pulling myself down. We'll share a mashal soon about how I can pull myself down with my thinking. But being home is where we want the children to feel themselves. And themselves means you're 100% human, and because you're 100% human, you're probably going to be like 99.999% of all of us, and that is, Ein tzaddik ba'aretz shel aseh tov v'lo yechta. There's no such thing as someone who only does good, he's a complete utter tzaddik, never ever makes a mistake. I mean, they just don't make them like that too often. There are some exceptions, but very few. That's the time of Chazal, they only identified 4 or 5 different exceptions. So, moving on. Number 4 of this is, home is where our kids can be assured they're going to be loved, not judged, listened to, and cared for. Number 6, home is where we teach that we get what we want by saying, yes please, and thank you. We're living in a generation where that's not necessarily part of the culture, and really, you look at the Lashon of the Avos and the Imahos and the Shiftei Kah, you'll see that throughout Tanakh, when people spoke with each other, they would often insert the word na, which means please. It's simply respectful. I'm not talking about this just because I'm British and born in England. I'm talking about this from the perspective of simple derech eretz. In the home, we train our children to say yes please and thank you. I know that in some communities it's not necessarily part of the culture. It doesn't make it right or wrong, but it certainly does make it right, because when you go outside of that culture and that's what is expected in the norm of interacting with each other, yes please and thank you add up. They really mean a lot. It means I don't take anything for granted when I make a request. It's not magia li, and if I take on the attitude that give me this, past that, and I don't add on that magic word, please, what am I doing to my character? What am I teaching myself in terms of gratitude, appreciation? I'm not showing simple appreciation and gratitude for something that's not owed to me. And therefore, yes, please and thank you is part of the home. You'll see why this has to do with bullying. And then number 6 of this, the home should be a place where, and again, this is a should be, it's not always going to be this way, because we're all pretty much in the range of normalcy, where we are respectful. So it's not just yes, please, and thank you, it's also we're respectful to each other even when we're different. And even if, Chas v'shalom, we do shout or scream, we'll apologize or make up. And that becomes a place where the child knows I am safe to talk about myself and what's going on in my life. Because if I come home and I've got friction with my parents, I don't have rapport with my parents, they're probably not going to be the address that I open up to when it comes to my challenges with the bully in school. So it really is important to take these pieces into consideration in reaffirming what my home has to be for my children. In other words, the home needs to be the exact opposite environment that the bully is trying to make you think. So, for example, the bully wants me to think I don't count. I'm nobody. But guess what? At home, I do count. I'm a member of my family. And actually, they count on me for whatever responsibilities I might have in the house, whether it's helping make breakfast, preparing for Shabbos, and I'm loved at home. The bully wants me to feel intimidated. Well, at home, I'm accepted. With my faults and weaknesses, my parents still love me. The bully wants me to feel humiliated and perhaps even stupid. But at home, I'm appreciated, My siblings and we get along. We sometimes don't, but essentially we love each other, and hopefully that's preparation for going on to the rest of our lives, when we never know when we're going to need each other, and who could we turn to, knowing fully that we can rely on that person later on in our lives when we go through our own stuff. If not, our siblings, our parents. And if our parents are not there for whatever reason, then the siblings are the next address. And if the child knows, no, I have a home where I am appreciated, where I'm respected, where I'm relied upon, where I'm competent, where I share, where we work together as a team in our home with my siblings, with my parents. So when the bully tries to make out that nobody cares about me, well, that's not really true, because I have a whole life outside of the classroom, outside of recess, outside of the bus, outside of the corridors between the classes. I'm loved by my family. The bully wants me to think no one loves me. So he'll say no one likes you. Everybody hates you. Well, again, you want the child to have a home where he feels so loved and appreciated that the bully's words can't have a full effect, because I have a life outside of this kid. The bully wants me to believe I have no friends. Well, one second. At home, I've got my neighbors. We play together at home. I'm part of a community, a part of shul. I go to Pirkei. I've got friends there who are not necessarily the same kids in class. So when the bully says I've got no friends, one second, do you know how many cousins I have? Do you know how many uncles and aunts who adore me? And I've got favorite cousins and less favorite cousins. And I've got cousins in this community and abroad. So the frame of reference that the child has of who he is and what he's part of, who he belongs to in the family, extended family, are all broadening his frame of reference for when a comment, nobody likes you, well, let's put that in the context of, that's not true, that's not accurate. And therefore my mind doesn't have to revisit, nobody likes me, I have no friends. It's not true, it's not true, it's not accurate. I have family. The bully tells me I'm a know-all or a Dumbo. And at home, my parents are not fixed on my report card and my grades and my homework scores or my reports. That their measure of me is my character. I'm lovable. Their measure of me is what counts the most. Midas. We've talked about it a lot in building block number 9. Midas means character, and it also means measures, because the word midah actually means both, because what's the true measure of a human being? Their report card? Really? The size of their waistline? Oh, give me a break. How tall they are? Their facial features is the definition and measure of who they are? How much money they got in their bank account? The size of their home? The zip code they live in? What car they drive, where they go for vacation. Those are just measures of what people can afford. They might be measures of other things, but the true measure of a human being is nothing that's outside of us. And that's why the word midah means both measure, by God's definition, and character, because that's the definition. That's the true measure of a human being. So when the bully tells me I'm a know-all or a Dumbo or anything in between, well, at home where we live, that's not how we decide the measure of how good or not good you are. So this is how you help the home become a place which is an anti-bullying environment. The bully wants me to believe I'm undeserving of praise. But guess what? At home, my parents frequently praise me for my virtues, for my character, for my personality, for the giving, very generous, easily resilient to insults and bounces back, forgiving very quickly, a vatran, whatever qualities a kid has. Hey, happy-go-lucky, bounces back after difficulties, doesn't take life too seriously, doesn't get down on themselves. So when the bully wants to tell me no one likes me, no one appreciates me, I have no qualities to admire. So it may not be in any of those specific words, but that's the message of what the bully wants to get over to me, whether he's bullying me in cyberspace, in texting and emails, or bullying me verbally or through nasty letters. The bottom line is, home becomes the opposite environment, and thereby contrast will offer, in my frame of reference, that's not true. That's not accurate. Because over here, I am loved. I am appreciated. The real resilience is inside out, where we know it of ourselves. But I'm sharing with you the importance of building rapport with our children, and that starts locally in our home. The point here is we want our kids' frame of reference for themselves and their internal compass to be what will point the needle in the direction of, are you telling the truth about me, or am I telling the truth about me? And my parents are telling the truth, and my friends at home, and my neighborhood, and my cousins, and my uncle, and my aunt, the Rav of my shul, and the community, and where I daven. And you got all that against the one claim of the bully, and now the child's internal frame of reference has a much stronger place to give him the necessary, call it the bully-proof vest that will stand up to the nonsense that comes out of his mouth. Obviously, the repercussions are great because you want the child to have that strength and that resilience, not just for after school when he gets home, but you want that to be built in the family in the early formative years of the child's life, so that whoever the bully is going to be in this child's life later on, and it might be in their own marriage, it might be a father-in-law who's really tough and really hard, or it could be some other member of the extended family that's really, really difficult to get along with. It could be a co-worker, it might be the boss. There are so many people who could be categorized as intimidating or bullying or pushing and trying to maintain that imbalance of power later on in their adult life. The safe haven of a home in the child's formative years is actually part of helping the child build his internal frame of reference, that I have a life outside of this person's comments. So number 7 of this, if at home mom and dad are respectful of different people, even extended family members who are different, or even immediate family members who are different, and they celebrate the differences between the children and don't necessarily make one kid better than the other. So these are very, very important experiences for the child to know that at home we respect differences, and therefore I don't have to take so seriously the fact that this bully over here does not respect that I'm different, whether I'm too tall, and that's what he's bullying me for, or I'm too short, or I'm too thin, or too fat, or too intelligent, or too unintelligent, too popular, or too unpopular. See, remember we said the bully doesn't need a reason to bully, because he can come up with anything on the full spectrum from one extreme to the other and anything in between. So the problem is not what he's going to say. The problem is going to be, can I stand up to that, or do I get knocked down? And even if I do get knocked down, do I have the inner strength to pull myself up very easily and quickly and have that internal strength, resilience to not be knocked down even when I'm standing? That in my mind, I'm a loser because he said so, and I start believing it. So number 8 of this, at home, parents who are respectful of secular Jews, non-religious Jews, or Jews who may be frum but not as frum as me, or different type of Hasidus, or different type of Sfardi or Ashkenazi, or different type of Yekka than I am. And before you know it, these differences, if they become really pronounced in a disrespectful way, then I'm going to take the bully much more seriously. Because I myself am part of a home where we don't respect differences. But if it's really true that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the one who's giving out the points of who's considered truly religious and who's truly not, whether I'm wearing the right clothes and doing the right things, but it's none of my business how religious or not you are, whoever you are, as my neighbor or a friend. And if the culture in the home that I'm living in is that there's a tolerance, and Ahavas Yisrael extends to all types of Jews, so is it possible that when this bully comes up with his claims against me, which are clearly, obviously discriminatory, clearly putting me down because I'm different in some way. Well, at home, the environment is all about differences are not that important. Being respectful of how we deal with the differences, that matters. So that's my frame of reference. I'm not going to take the bully so seriously, and his chances of knocking me down are less, and therefore the chance of me being a target is less, and he'll end up going elsewhere or stop bullying me at least. So these are not small pointers. Each one of them is loaded in the sense that this alone can help build that bully-proof vest, so to speak, that we're referring to. At home, parents who are respectful of non-Jews, who are created in Hashem's image, and don't put them down, is going to help the child have this internal resilience that I'm not afraid of differences. I don't have to worry about the fact that people are so different. They're born differently, a different race, different ideas, different isms that they celebrate or worship. I'm not afraid. Avram Avinu, he took on the whole world. The Avos, the Imahos, for the most part, we've lived outside of our land for thousands of years of exile. Avram Avinu lived outside. Moshe Rabbeinu never even entered it. We've not been home geographically for thousands of years, and we're very strong. And that's because there's an internal resilience, which we're going to talk about at the end of this presentation, that's in our DNA, not just from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is the Ikar, but really it's from our Avos and Imahos. We're going to see that later. Number 10, at home we play games with our children. We go on family outings, family vacations. Those are times when we bond, we laugh, we cry, we fight, we make up, we continue, we get on with life. But there are times we just enjoy being together, doing things together, playing together, outings together, family vacations together. So these are all reinforcers of I'm not alone, I'm not unloved, I'm not without friends, I'm not without people in my life who care. And therefore, the words of the bully are so less potent. Number 11, family time, lunch with mum, lunch with dad. Sometimes the kids might be taken out of school, lunch break, or sometimes in the afternoon for a time out with mum, time out with dad. It could be for pizza and ice cream, go bowling together, or just for a drink together, then bring them back to school. My parents will take time out of the day to spend time with me. We do that after school as well. So all this is going to help me be strong when the bully says I'm a nobody, no one loves me, no one cares for me. It's not true. Number 13.2, we did 11 points in 13.1. 13.2, your home is your child's Arei Miklat, your child's city of safety, city of refuge, if you want to call it that. So we did touch on this. You want a home to be somewhere where the kid is able to unwind, able to read, relax, do things that he enjoys, and also bring friends where he's not going to be afraid to bring them because the home is looks weird or untidy or not clean, Has v'shalom. So we did talk about that. The Torah wants me to lay down really clear. It wants me, the father, the mother, the teacher, to be super clear about where the Torah stands on bullying. We've talked about this already. The sensitivity the Torah has towards people who are vulnerable, an almana, or that's a widow, or an orphan, a yasema, a yasam. The Torah wants me to understand that it's going to take the side of the people who are being bullied. Nirdaf. And it's a pasuk actually in Koheles. Elokim is mevakesh hanirdaf. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the power of all powers, will always take the side of the nirdaf, the one who's being pursued, chased. So once it's clear for me, the adult, the parent, the teacher, then I'm going to be much more sensitive to noticing where there are nasty comments being thrown in class from one kid to another, or in recess, or as they leave the class to go to the next class, or in transition. It doesn't make a difference when. The fact that I, as a teacher or parent, are much more sensitized to recognize, oh my gosh, bullying is very serious. We don't want it to lead to what it can lead to. And at the same time, I don't need to worry about how terrible it is, because the solution is deceptively simple once we realize it's all taking place in my mind, and that the child's true resilience is the fact that in his thoughts is where he experienced the emotion of feeling bullied. It's in his thoughts where he experienced the emotion of feeling intimidated. It doesn't happen anywhere else. The moment that really starts to really get into the kid's kishkas, he really understands, it's in his bloodstream, that I exist in my thought. So when you hurt me with your words, as much as it could anguish me and it could bring me down, and it really might, but I'm never more than one thought away from thinking the next thought, which does not have to be, I'm a victim of your bullying. I'm intimidated by your bullying. I'm hurt by your bullying. Because the moment I start recognizing I'm feeling hurt, but that's a thought. And if that thought is not servicing me, it's not supporting me, it's not healthy, so then I can have the chance to let that thought go, and Hashem's internal Tselem Elokim that's inside of me will surface with the thought that will get me out of this. Recover very fast, without hours, weeks, months, or years of analyzing the trauma that I've been through in our years of bullying, and just move on. Avera, Ava, it happened, it's history, move on. So, number 13.2, we said is parents need to be super clear up front as to what is acceptable, what's not acceptable in the home. Sibling rivalry is a reality, but I still, as a parent, have to be really clear what is okay and what's not okay. I, as a teacher, as a mora, have to be super clear what's okay in the classroom, what's not okay, what I permit, what I won't permit. And the more clearer I am, the more the children will know, you can't get away with that teacher. It doesn't work in his class, doesn't work in her class. Once I know that conflict in the classroom or home is never resolved with insults, name-calling, put-downs, and certainly not by physical responses, that's when I will realize reality does not take place in the way I'm going to react by hurting you back. That's not going to make you think. It might control you outwardly, but you're probably going to hate me more for putting you down in front of the rest of the class, for saying a nice, nasty comment to this kid. Well, the only thing that really works is rapport, where the children respect me because I respect me. And when they know that I have set where the red line goes, and I'll talk to that kid either in private, and in some cases pull the kid to the side of the classroom, or say, Moshe, you need to speak to me right after class. Don't go to recess until you've spoken to me. Or don't go to the next class until you've spoken to me. And the kid knows, we're going to have a short session about that not nice comment that I made to Michael or to Shimon in the classroom. According to Dr. Joel Haber, he's the author of Bully Proof Your Child for Life. He claims that in his 30 years of practice as a bully guru, the bully coach, children who are not used to consequences at home for sibling rivalry and do not have their parents step in to stamp out harsh words, taunting, intimidation, and physical bullying, those kids are more likely to take the bully and target roles into the classroom, sports, camp, and even marriage. So don't get panicked about this. We're just being honest about the territory, and we're also trying to also pinpoint the solution is not so complex. It's as simple as thought, and it's only one thought at a time. 13.3 is don't panic. What do I mean by that? Because what I'm about to share can happen. What's that? If we magnify the importance of rapport with an extreme example of what unchecked bullying can lead to. So we've already gone through the list of children experiencing anxiety, sadness, depression, low performance academics, eating disorders, possibly falling into addictions, missing school, bunking off school, that's an English expression for skipping class and school. They might fall into substance abuse and other addictions, and that can spill over later on as well in their performance in the workplace. But what's really kind of, and I want to call this scary because the title of this section is Don't Panic, is that there are more and more medical case profiles where patients are complaining of constant chronic pain. And it's so interesting that after they've been referred to psychologists, having been through so many different tests where the chronic pain was not identified in its cause, they just couldn't figure out. They got all these interesting symptoms, but no apparent cause. And why were they then sent to psychologists? Because the psychologists uncover that the pain is sometimes self-induced. Now, what does that mean? So let me share with you a typical profile. And this you'll find in the various research that you can do on bullying. You can go to stopbullying.gov and you can look at the Bully Proof book from Dr. Haber. But here's the telltale sign that when you've got a patient who's been through many, many tests for the chronic pain that they're consistently experiencing and nothing is showing up as what the cause is. So what ends up happening is the doctors will suggest exploratory surgery. And here's the telltale sign. When those patients agree readily to the surgery, that's a possible simon, that's a possible sign something's really wrong over here. And it's not about the body, it's actually about the mind. And that's when they're referred to psychologists who not uncommonly will uncover the following, that this person is actually in an abusive relationship, an abusive marriage, and she has found that by constantly finding reasons to be in pain, and possibly even go through exploratory surgery, which ends up showing no cause, and then being more than happy to do further exploratory surgery with all its possible side effects and risks. That is a big red flag suggesting that this person is self-inducing the pain in order to get out of being abused by that person. Because all the time that they are on these heavy medications or painkillers, or they are going through surgery and recovering, the spouse backs off, leaves them alone, or certainly reduces the amount of bullying, intimidation. And so this is that's a scary kind of profile, and it's not to make you scared that I'm sharing this with you. It's in order that we recognize it can play out really far, but it can also be caught very quickly. One particular book comes to mind actually when I think of, this is not someone who was bullied by her husband or suffered in that sense, but certainly went through many depressions and was on painkillers and antidepressants for years on and off, with having children as well. It's a phenomenal book. It's called Exquisite Mind by Terry Rubenstein. An excellent book. I would highly recommend it. It will give you a tremendous amount of chizuk to recognize what's the true source of pain? What's the true source of our feelings? She's extremely eloquent in describing, it's a frum lady, in describing how thought is everything. Moving forward on this, as adults, we can not always, but usually more easily back away from people who harass us or intimidate us. I'll just get out of this job. I'll get out of this marriage. But you know what? And that's not simple, but adults in a certain way have the advantage that they can, if they want, move on and move out. However, when you've got a child in the classroom who contractually, by contract, by state law, unless you're homeschooling the kid, that kid has to be in that classroom 7-8 hours a day, 5-6 days a week, and they're being bullied. Oh my gosh, that's really hard. That requires that I, as a parent and even as a teacher, have rapport with the children so they feel safe to be able to come to me and tell me what's going on in the corridors, on the bus, off the bus. So in that sense, nothing could be more important than securing the physical and emotional safety of our children inside out.